No problem this time. Last time not so good. Never know this time of year whether you're but we basically pushed it to the institution up to their discretion. So if the needle's not moving, eventually, this is 18 data, so this doesn't include all the changes. It will shift and you will see. But we don't know. It may not shift because it's up to the discretion of the institution. And I'm in agreement it's what's the right change. We were talking about this with Greg and the LBB, and we're like, look, we're not ready to make a recommendation because it needs to be studied. The TPOG, now they're coming in, we don't have a process to actually fund it. Yeah, because we talked about what's the institutions, I think, very much wish that they could. Part of it is fun. Yeah. The priority model is the only high school. Good things that we intended this, but because of this, it's still forcing it that way. We'll have to wait and see, what the data and like Chad says. I do. There is a potential we could be making a recommendation, but it's got to be thought. Usually they share that with developers, with national experts. I used to be all for it. I can do this. Well, I don't know about all of this, but yeah, I mean, everybody's got it, but they should.
Supplemental materials to follow.
An institution, now that we've included the whole population, it's 70%. There's 30%. As I told Greg back in December, November, more heavens. Somebody's going to get told no. If I tell yes to a
Let me get everybody. Good morning and welcome to Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. Before we begin today, I would like to announce that agenda item 5J has been withdrawn from the agenda. This is consideration of adopting the Certification Advisory Council and the Commissioner's recommendation to the committee relating to requests from Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine for initial certificate authority to grant degrees in Texas. This item will be rescheduled for a future meeting. We'll move on to agenda item 2. This is consideration of approval of the minutes from the March 20th, 2019 committee meeting. Is there any discussion or questions about those? If not, do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wilson. A second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is consideration of approval of the consent calendar. And these items are listed as items 5L, 5M, 1 through 9, 5N, 1 through 5, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, 1 through 5. Are there any agenda items that anyone wants to move or remove from the consent calendar? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams, second?
Second.
Second by Chairman Stedman. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is public testimony on the agenda items relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. At this time, we do not have anyone registered to testify, so we'll go on to the next item. Agenda item 5 involves matters relating to the Committee on Academic and Workforce Success, a report on activities of the Joint Admissions Medical Program, JAMP. This is an information item only. I'll invite up Dr. J. Scott Wright, Executive Director of Texas Health Education Services. He will provide a brief summary of the latest activities and it will be available to answer any questions. Welcome, Dr. Wright.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the invitation to speak to you today. My name is Dr. Wright. I'm Executive Director of the Texas Health Education Service, which houses JAMP, in addition to the Texas Medical and Dental Schools Application Service and the Texas Health Education Research Center and Advising Network. I'd like to also introduce my colleague today that is with me, Paul Hermesmeyer, who is the Director of JAMP, and I have a prepared statement I'd like to deliver to you today. The Joint Admission Medical Program was established by the Texas Legislature in 2001 through the efforts of Republican House member Teal Bivens from Amarillo and the Senate Democrat Royce West from Dallas to assist certain economically disadvantaged students in preparing for and succeeding in medical school. The program provides undergraduate and medical school scholarships, summer undergraduate internships and stipends, an extensive MCAT preparation program for undergraduate students in the participating institutions around the state. There are 68 such undergraduate institutions, 34 public and 34 private. JAMP provides funding to the public institutions to build a broader pre-med curriculum, offer tutoring and mentoring programs which benefit not only JAMP students, but also the general pre-medical population of those schools. Students are selected for participation in JAMP based on a criteria established by the council, which includes proof of economic disadvantage, a minimum of 27 credit hours of undergraduate coursework with at least a 3.25 grade point average, and an SAT or ACT score higher than the state average. Once admitted, students who meet all continuing eligibility requirements, which include a 3.25 undergraduate GPA and science GPA, successful completion of the summer internships, and the prescribed MCAT score, are guaranteed admission to one of the 11 participating medical schools in Texas. In the next biennium, we will add the state's 2 newest medical schools, which you have approved in the course of the last year. Since 2002, more than 4,300 undergraduate students have applied for entrance into JAMP. More than 1,700 have been admitted. Because JAMP is a competitive program, the council desires to admit only students who will benefit from the program and who are likely to succeed. Therefore, extensive strides are taken to interview selected applicants before they are admitted to see if they have the cognitive and non-cognitive qualities expected of excellent physicians. Each year, the council devotes significant time to the process of interviewing students around the state. To prevent a financial burden for applicants, these interviews are conducted by medical school faculty and administrators who travel to 5 hub sites where undergraduate students are interviewed. Students admitted into JAMP are provided undergraduate and medical school scholarship support, as well as focused stipends for summer internship programs and travel costs for medical school and residency interviews. In addition to financial support, an extensive medical college admissions test preparation program has been developed to broaden student science readiness and to support student preparation for being successful on the admission exam. Students are provided with a detailed program to develop and improve critical analysis and reasoning skills, as well as to provide enrichment in biology, chemistry, biochemistry, and the behavioral sciences to support and supplement the academic courses that they've taken at their home institutions. Students also participate in 2 summer internship programs at the participating Texas medical schools. These internships are designed to introduce students to the medical school environment and the curriculum, create an understanding of and appreciation for cultural issues, ethical standards, and professionalism in medicine. Finally, the summer programs give the students important clinical experiences which serve to broaden their understanding of the realities of medicine in the 21st century. As of 2019, 528 JAMP students have graduated from medical school, 515 of whom are currently in or have completed residency programs. The 13 others are applying for entrance into residency programs after taking time off for a variety of reasons. Of these 515, 63% have entered primary care residency programs, which has been identified as a significant need area for the state. This is compared to less than 50% of the general population of medical school graduates who enter primary care fields. Additionally, 66% of the 515 were placed in residency programs in Texas, which increases the likelihood that they will stay in the state for their career, serving our population. Generally, the state's medical schools place around 50% of their classes in residency programs outside of Texas. Therefore, JAMP is meeting the needs of Texans in both the kind and the numbers of physicians. I will say additionally, of those JAMP students who have completed residency and are now in the physician workforce, 75% are practicing in Texas. The JAMP Council and program administrators are very proud of the successes of the Joint Admission Medical Program. We recognize that the number of JAMP students graduating from medical school thus far is small compared to the time period in which the program has existed. This is due, in fact, to the process of educating physicians, which is long and rigorous, from undergraduate school through medical school and into residency. That we have almost 500 students currently in the pipeline is also encouraging. These JAMP students will no doubt meet many needs of the population of Texas, caring for Texans in their hometowns, whether rural or urban, serving their needs in primary care settings, as well as specialized clinics, and providing medical role models with backgrounds very similar to their own. We appreciate the support of the coordinating board over these many years of JAMP and look forward to successes in the future. Thank you for allowing me to address you today, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Dr. Wright?
No, I would just comment that the percentage that go into primary care is very important, so congratulations on that.
Absolutely. Thank you. The medical schools work very diligently during the summer programs in particular to focus the students on these need areas, the benefits to the state, and I think students hear that, whether it's from the medical schools which are in underserved areas or the urban medical schools where they also hear these continuing messages. So it's nice to see that message kind of gets across to them. Absolutely.
Right. Yes, Commissioner.
I have a question. Given the fact that you've had such good results in regard to training family practitioners, primary care physicians. Is there anything that we can learn from what you do in JAMP that we could just apply more broadly, since that's clearly an area of a huge shortage in Texas?
Well, I think we've discussed this in the council as well as in staff over a number of years. And I think part of it amounts to where the students are coming from. That's part of the issue. We were discussing earlier today a student who ended up going into not primary care but cardiothoracic surgery, a very lucrative field. He could easily have stayed in Houston or Dallas and made a lot of money, but he went back to Amarillo. He was from a small town in the Panhandle, and he is one of only two, soon to be one of only one, cardiothoracic surgeons in Amarillo. And so I think it's part of it is this idea that we have to both what we try to do in JAMP, but also in a larger pool of applicants, is to identify students who are coming from these areas, who at least initially state, I want to go back and give back. It doesn't mean they'll always do that, but it means that they at least have a better chance of doing that. Years ago, we used to joke about students who would apply to medical school and they would say, well, I really want to go serve in an underserved area, but you look at their application and it's not sufficiently clear that they've ever been to an underserved area. So you look at these things and you try to evaluate where are these students coming from. So I think that's part of the puzzle. It's a complex situation, though, but I think diversifying the classes and pulling people from these areas, I give a lot of credit to the UT RGV Medical School for really focusing their efforts on that four-county area and really pulling kids in from institutions and from those that have grown up in the Valley. That's the kind of mission-oriented sort of success, I think, that really benefits certainly those locations, but also the populations of those areas.
Well, if you have any other ideas, and as well as ones you've just expressed, any other ideas about how we can incorporate some of the elements of JAMP to meet the broader need for primary care physicians, boy, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. I'll certainly be willing to do that. When we discover the solution, we'll let you know.
Dr. Wright, I was going to mention, I'm from the Rio Grande Valley, and I know President Bailey very well, and Dean Krause of the medical school.
Absolutely.
And you're right. So I think, and to the commissioner's question, I think it's almost like smaller, regionalized, and
Absolutely.
you recruit, future doctors from those regions, and you educate them about the needs.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what JAMP is doing so well.
Absolutely.
And as you recruit in the areas, the students understand the needs of the communities. And we need to do that statewide in different regions.
Absolutely.
Because you brought up, that's great that you brought up UTRGV and the medical school, and I've toured it again recently, and they emphasize that, kind of like taking care of your own. And
Absolutely.
we can do that, replicate that all over the state. Yeah. And they get a better understanding of the needs of the communities.
Oh, they know the needs. Absolutely.
That's right.
Yes.
And they're part of that, and we can recruit students for that. And that can apply across all the health professions, whether it's nursing, veterinary medicine.
Correct.
So that is really
Dentistry
being specific.
is another good example of that.
That's
Yes,
right,
absolutely.
and dentistry. And so I think that's great. So keep up the good work with JAMP.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Great program.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Certainly.
Next item is Agenda Item 5B, is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to funding appropriated to the Joint Admissions Medical Program for fiscal year 2020-2021. Dr. Peoples.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you just heard what a successful program this has been. And if you'll notice on the blue page that the appropriations for this particular program have been the same for biennia now. And approval of this item would allow the coordinating board to go ahead and forward that $10.2 million to the JAMP program in September so that they can continue the outstanding work that they've been doing.
Okay. Any question or
Yes,
comments?
so we're just sending the money to them. They allocate, we don't make allocation decisions.
Strictly
Okay.
pass through for us.
Well, I'd make the motion.
And I second.
Motion by Chairman Stedman, second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please
Aye.
signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to Agenda Item 5C is a report to the committee on activities of the Family Practice Residency Advisory Committee, including the report of trustee funds distributed in the fiscal year 2019. This is an information item only. Dr. Michael Reagan, Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Officer at UMC Health Systems and Professor of Family Medicine at Texas Tech University Health Science Center, serves as chair of this committee. Doctor, thank you for being here, and he will provide us a summary of the latest activities of the committee, and he'll be available for questions.
Thank you for allowing me to present our report from the committee. I'm a brand new chair of the committee. Roland Gertz, Dr. Gertz had led that committee for many years, and so my first go at it. As mentioned, I'm a chief medical officer at UMC, which is a primary teaching hospital for Texas Tech. I've been involved in family medicine education for about 25 years. So I'm happy to present the report. Our committee is very passionate about the activities that we oversee.
Okay.
Family medicine, family physicians are crucial for our health system. They're really the foundation of any health system, either urban or rural. Unfortunately, rural is more of a challenge, trying to get doctors out to rural areas. And really, a majority of that care is provided by family physicians. When you look at funding of GME for family medicine, it is a challenge. Hospitals are often not inclined to invest in family medicine programs. They'd prefer the cardiology program that brings business to their hospital. Much of family medicine training is outpatient. So the funds that are provided through the coordinating board are really crucial for making things work at the GME level for family medicine. The group really heard reports at our meeting about the financial expenditures across the programs, and we also heard written reports about the challenges. You could probably guess what the number one challenge is for family medicine residency leaders, and that is finances. Trying to make the budget balance is not easy, and so the funds are crucial that are provided through the coordinating board. We heard that 2 programs in the state have closed, one in Wichita Falls and one at the Bay Area. Closure is not clearly financial, certainly an element. It's always going to be a local issue about why a program closes, but we're very concerned about losing 2 programs in the state. That's going to impact the output of graduates. We also oversee the family medicine preceptor program, which tries to place residents out in rural areas so they can get an exposure to what a rural practice looks like. Many medical graduates are trained in large cities and don't have that exposure, and so I think it's crucial to get them out there to see that and experience that, so that's an important program. We remain concerned about the overall funding, and you know it was reduced by about 44% biennium ago. We're thankful it was maintained at this level going forward. We have specific recommendations about funding for the next year that will come forward in the next item, so I won't go over that. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have regarding our report.
Any questions for Dr. Reagan?
So I've heard about this, what's it called, Fast Track to Family Practice program, right? At Texas Tech?
Yes, sir, the
University
Family
is-
Medicine Accelerated Track program.
Yeah. Is that related to what you're doing?
It is in that those students enter a program where they complete medical school in 3 years. They have to meet all the requirements of a 4-year degree within 3 years, which means they're going to work quite a bit extra, but it does save them the cost of 1 year of tuition and living expenses and all of that. Then they're fast-tracked into a family medicine residency program. So it's really for those students entering medical school who know they want to be a primary care physician, but it does save quite a bit on the cost of the degree, and it's been very successful. I was involved in developing that program when I was chair of family medicine at Tech, and it's been very successful. We've been following graduates out for years after that program, and they're very successful. We get really good students. They do really well. And so it's a great program. And
Yeah,
it's fun.
that's what I'd heard. I'm just a little unclear how your group relates to that.
Receiving them into residency.
I see.
So they would be doing residency in
I see.
family medicine.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we'll move on to Agenda Item 5D, which is consideration of adopting the Family Practice Residency Advisory Committee's recommendation of the committee relating to the distribution of funds entrusted to the Coordinating Board to support family practice residency programs for fiscal year 2020. Dr. Michael Regain, Chair of the Faculty Residency Program, and Rex Peebles will be available to answer any questions.
There may have been a bit of miscommunication here, but I will go ahead and present the
Okay.
item, and then
Okay.
Dr. Reagan, you be prepared to answer any questions.
You bet.
Or we both will.
Okay.
If the time comes. So you just heard about the program and what it does. And so the committee has recommended out of its total estimated appropriation of, or actually it's appropriation of $5 million. When the blue page was written, the budget hadn't been finalized, but it has been now. And as you can see on there that they will serve 819 residents, and the estimated funding per resident will be $5,853, which will help supplement those students in the programs for primary care. This also includes 40 rural rotations that are paid out at $2,500 apiece, and that's to help ensure that, as was already pointed out, that students can go out into a rural area and serve a rotation and be exposed to that, since a lot of them don't come from those areas in the first place. And also 3 public health rotations as well that also gets at those areas that are underserved as the general rule. So, and it includes $100,000 for the Faculty Development Center that has been funded at that level for the past couple of biennia. And that Faculty Development Center provides professional development for residents and physicians in the family care area. And if you'd care to add anything to that, I would be happy.
I think you covered it very well.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Peebles or Dr. Regain? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendation on Agenda Item 5D? Moved by Mr. Wilson, and a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item, thank you for being here, Dr. Reagan.
Yes, sir.
Agenda item 5E is the report to the committee on activities of medical education and graduate medical education programs. This is an information item only. Dr. Peebles will provide a brief summary on the latest activities and be available to answer questions.
All right. Thank you. So the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board administers basically 3 grant programs that deal with GME. All of them are there to increase first-year residency positions and to promote medical students' interest in primary care medical specialties through the statewide preceptorship program. Graduate medical education is also commonly referred to as residency training, so it's the final stage that doctors or prospective doctors really go through in order to be prepared for licensure and practice. So we have been appropriated in this coming biennium $157.2 million in total, and as John White earlier pointed out, this is one of the successes we had with legislation was a substantial increase in funding for GME positions to maintain the 1.1-to-1 ratio with the addition of the 3 new medical schools with UT, RGV, and Incarnate Word. So this also includes a modest amount of money, $500,000 for planning grants. And this is money afforded to institutions so that they can actually go through the planning process of creating new residency programs and residency slots to help us maintain that 1.1-to-1 ratio going forward. And as a result, there have been several programs that have been created through that, and then it also includes the $3 million per biennium for the statewide preceptorship programs that are designed to make sure that medical students are introduced to family care residencies before they actually apply for residency programs, and to help try to keep that pipeline going for primary care positions in particular.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Agenda Item 5F, which is a report to the Committee on Activities of the Undergraduate Education Advisory Committee. This is also an information item only. Dr. Daniel Brown, Dean of the University College of Texas State University, serves as co-chair of this committee. Dr. Brown will provide a brief summary to the latest activities and will be available for questions. Welcome, Dr. Brown.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here on behalf of the Undergraduate Education Advisory Committee and on behalf of my co-chair, Julie Penley from El Paso Community College, and acknowledge as I begin the exceptional support and assistance we've received throughout the year from Reinhold Cornelius and Melinda Valdez of Coordinating Board staff, who managed to keep us organized, on track, and prepared for our events as we continue. This past year, the committee met on 3 dates. We met on September 21st, January 11th in a special called meeting, and April 26th. The estimated cost of member participation in these 3 meetings throughout the year was approximately $8,200 for travel costs and expenses. Time commitments are also important to reflect on. It reflected a total of approximately 116 working days for committee members over the 3 committee meetings, and as well 31 working days for coordinating board staff. So what did we do this past year? Well, we accomplished some important tasks, and first and foremost, we supported the board by providing wording for negotiated rulemaking regarding the component area option of the Texas core curriculum to address special interests of institutions to fulfill foundational educational needs of their students. In addition, the UEAC recommended not to change THECB rules with respect to upper division courses in the Texas core curriculum. And we, especially in our meeting in January, gathered to develop a list of arguments for and arguments against reducing the Texas core curriculum from 42 semester credit hours to 36 semester credit hours through the elimination of the component area option. Now, one of the powers of the UEAC is that members focus on these issues from their respective institutional sizes and missions. Larger and smaller universities and community colleges, rural and urban institutions with various missions and goals, but always in our meetings focusing on student success in Texas. Throughout all of our conversations this past year, issues of transfer and transferability were considered as we proceeded throughout the year. And as we look forward to the coming year, we believe that transfer and transferability will continue to be a focus of our work as we consider from each of our perspectives the impacts of policy, regulation, rulemaking on those populations as they navigate higher education, especially in the wake of the approval of Senate Bill 25 in the most recent legislative session. We had a busy year. It was a good year. It's a great group of folks to work for. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them at this time.
Any questions for Dr. Brown? If not, comment?
So, okay, so you recommended going from 42 to 36 or not?
We did not make a recommendation to drop from 42 to 36 semester credit hours in the core.
Who had that idea?
It was presented to us as one of the many options that were being considered throughout the year during the legislative session. And the committee, comprised of our representatives from across the ecosystem, chose not to support as a committee that perspective.
And who, what kind of characterize the institution that would be kind of for the reduction and the institution that would be against the reduction?
Okay, so considering the possibility of taking the core from 42 hours to 36 hours, in some ways, the conversation revolved around a variety of topics. At some institutions, they valued the additional time for foundational learning, especially wanted to promote that within their students. Other institutions obviously raised the possibility that changing that requirement would offer more time in the degree audit, especially for the baccalaureate degree completer, to complete other courses that might be major specific or related to future career and workforce opportunities. So really, the conversation, though, across all members of the ecosystem was largely focused on what do we need to do in the best interest of the student at this time, and we didn't believe at this time making that change was in our best interest. I will tell you, another key conversation in transferability involved the extent to which so many programs and services, so many transfer outreach activities like our transfer planning guides at Texas State University have been developed only after the 2014 core curriculum changes. So we hadn't been in that core for an extensive period of time, and members decided at this point it was best to kind of hold where we are, see how all these transfer commitments, transfer relationships, and projects like the Transfer Planning Guide program at Texas State are going to be improving our transfer pathways.
But I guess I'm asking you to characterize or stereotype the ones that, the institutions that wanted to put more time into their major courses or higher level courses.
I'm not so sure I could say that any institution would say per se that was considered to be an option that higher education institutions at the four-year level might value. It wasn't so much caricature from the standpoint of the type of institution as it was the values that the two levels of institutions, community colleges and the four-year universities, might have on those hours as presenting opportunities for students. Remembering that some courses in the component area option, as an example, often include courses that also apply towards some foundational component for the major.
But maybe Chairman Stedman is asking more specifically, I think, in terms of how you get those constituents to bring those ideas to you in terms of the differences between the core hours.
Well, from that standpoint, the only thing I can say is that our conversations are wide open. One of the pieces that we bring to the table is that we're very nuts and bolts focused, so we're oftentimes thinking about how programs and services have direct impacts on the student's progression. And so from that standpoint, I don't want to assign responsibility for making the change or not making the change to a group of institutions in the state. But from that standpoint, it was very much a conversation about how making such a significant change might have a detrimental impact on our continuing effort to support transfer.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'll have to delve into that more. But yeah, I mean, there are different views on transfer, and that's what I was trying to get, sort of who's on one side, who's on the other. But it's more complex.
Well, and our major.
That's exactly what you're
then at least you're willing to answer. So okay, I'm fine.
So you just didn't give him the specifics on who was on. I know what he's after.
I appreciate him thinking that was an answer at some level.
Yes. Okay, no, but thank you.
Good try.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Brown. Any other comments or questions for Dr. Brown? Oh, thank you for being here. Appreciate the work for you and the committee. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5G, which is a report to the committee on activities of the lower division academic course guide manual advisory committee. Lower division this time, okay? This is an information item only, and we're going to welcome to our committee meeting Dr. Paul Bernazzani is the interim associate dean, welcome, of the arts and sciences at Lamar University. He serves as co-chair of the ACGM Advisory Committee. He will provide a brief explanation of the latest activities by their committee, and then he'll be available to take questions for the board. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. The lower division academic course guide manual is effectively a list of courses that transfer easily from one institution to another. The advisory committee's role is to look at additions, deletions, and modifications of these classes. In the last fiscal year, we met twice, and we have two recommendations for this committee. First of all, we looked at revisions of courses that were recently included or had been part of a modified field of study. And so these courses are in the areas of business, psychology, and social work. We're recommending the changes to the outcomes of these courses, courses included in the field of study. In our spring meeting, this group is really data-driven, so we looked at the 550 courses in the ACGM, and we looked at utilization, and we identified 35 that were not necessarily supposed to be in the ACGM. 2 were really severely underutilized in the past 5 years, less than 10 students, that type of thing. Were taking these classes. And so those are basically our recommendation to this committee. Thank you.
Good. So I guess my first question, if I may, is you said that they're not supposed to be in there. Is it just because of the lack of the participation in the classes, or are there other factors?
So, so we have 35 classes. 2 were in engineering technology. They were severely underutilized. The other 33 were part of a nursing associate's degree, and they're not utilized for a bachelor's degree, and therefore it's basically a cleanup of the ACGM list because nobody is actually using them.
So since it's so data-driven, you said, is there any other factors other than the utilization that the committee takes into account with the numbers on the ACGM?
We looked at really utilization over the period of 5 years. And utilization is defined by how many institutions are offering the class and what is the enrollment in each class.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay. Well, thank you for being here, Dr. Bernazzini. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're moving on next to Agenda Item 5H, was a consideration of adopting the staff recommendation of the committee relating to the report on the autism grant program. The report is under separate cover, so you should have it here in your handouts. You can look at that. Dr. Peoples will report on this item, please.
Thank you. So the 84th Texas Legislature in 2015 established and provided funding for the autism grant program, and they have continued to provide that same funding into 2 biennia since, including the one that's coming up. The program itself has 3 basic parts to it. One is parent-directed treatment. There's a total amount available in each fiscal year of $2.25 million for the research centers that are involved in this program. That includes both public and private institutions that have established research centers for autism. They must serve a combined total of at least 750 children with autism, and it's through parent-direct treatment methods. And then the other piece of this, or another piece of it, is the teacher and paraprofessional training that provides training for board-certified behavioral analyst training for teachers and paraprofessionals that work with autism kids, primarily in schools. All right. And there's $950,000 appropriated for it, and 2,547 children must be served each year. And then the last piece of it is innovative treatment models. So there's $700,000 made available to these autism research centers to propagate and study and look at new treatment methods for students. And I point out the number of students that have to be involved in each one of those programs in parent-directed treatment and behavioral analyst training for teachers and paraprofessionals, because on page 2 of the report, you'll note that the numbers of children served have exceeded the required numbers in each award cycle of this. So the grant programs are very successful. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are more than reaching the number of students that they're required to reach, and sometimes they're far exceeding those numbers.
Very good. Any questions or comments for Dr. Peebles? Do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation on this?
So move.
Okay, moved by Ms. Williams, seconded by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. We move on to Agenda Item 5I1, which is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the request from Texas A&M University and the Texas A&M University Health Science Center for a Doctor of Philosophy, PhD degree, with a major in pharmaceutical sciences. I believe we have representatives here from Texas A&M and the Texas A&M Health Science Center. Please come forward. Dr. Mansoor Khan is Vice Dean and Acting Department Head of Pharmaceutical Sciences. Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Dr. Nardinendra Kumar is Associate Professor, Pharmaceutical Sciences and Chair of the Graduate Program Committee. And Ramy Benfield is Assistant Dean for Finance and Administration. Thank you all for being here. And I'll begin with Dr. Peoples describing the program, and then we'll let our panel have a few words if they'd like.
Thank you. So Texas A&M University and the Texas A&M University Health Science Center are proposing a Doctor of Philosophy degree in pharmaceutical sciences. It would be offered both in Kingsville, where the College of Pharmacy is actually located, but also offered in College Station as well through what I used to refer to as instructional television, but there'll be links between the two, and there'll be real-time lectures offered and so forth, but there'll be students and faculty in both places that will instruct in the program to both. It will also have an emphasis on what the FDA refers to as their critical path initiative, which is, as I understand it, and I'm sure these gentlemen can tell us a little bit more about it if we want more information, but it's FDA's attempt to really transform or to change the way that medical products are introduced through the FDA, and this school would focus on that with its students as a way of going forward and looking at those processes and studying those processes and researching them, and at some point making recommendations about how those processes work or don't work. And so it's there's clearly a demonstrated workforce need for the program. And let me turn the page. The cost of it is rather significant at $12.9 million, but they do expect 5-year funding to equal or actually a little bit exceed that funding as well. It also will offer course credit for professional experience and competency-based education. Opportunities was also embedded in this program as well. Since a lot of the students will have recently worked in the field, either in pharmaceutical sciences or in pharmacy and so forth, they will bring with them some expertise and knowledge, and they'll be allowed to demonstrate that expertise and knowledge and get course credit for that at some point. So we're certainly appreciative of those efforts as well.
Thank you. Dr. Khan, welcome, and would you like to say a few words?
Good morning. Thank you very much for having us here. We are really excited to be here and present to you because we have been working on this for quite some time, actually almost 4 years. When we started it, and the task that was given to us was, when you want to start a PhD program in pharmaceutical sciences, by the way, this pharmaceutical sciences program in the entire A&M system, this is the only program. It's not like we have any other program. There are 11 universities within Texas A&M. This is the only program here. So the task that was given to us was, when you start a program, it has to be modern. It has to be very innovative. And then another task that was given, that was from provost as well as the dean. Another task that was given was it should be highly marketable and very relevant to today's problems and today's issues. And the third one was that really it has to be a multidisciplinary in nature, just to meet today's needs on that one. So we wanted students also to be critical thinkers and problem solvers of today's problem, the modern problem, some of the problems we did not have before, but we have those problems now in pharmaceutical sciences. So they need to understand it, and they need to be our future leaders to do it, right? So that was the task given to us. So now in terms of the modern and the innovation thing, what do you do? So what we did was, so we have interviewed, we have talked to people like the AAPS, American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists, the Controlled Release Society, and then we talked to leaders in Food and Drug Administration, because by then they had these position papers out on CGMPs of the 21st century, modernizing the pharmaceutical sciences, as well as the critical path areas. So we have interviewed them, we have talked to them, and then also we have talked to the NIPT. NIPT is a National Institute of Pharmaceutical Technology and Education. It's a consortium of 18 elite schools, including UT Austin is one of the members there, but Wisconsin, Kansas, Michigan, University of Maryland. So they are in the forefront of bringing changes in pharmaceutical sciences. So we interviewed them, and we got the support from them. So that was for modernization, and I can give you a lot of examples, but I'll come back to it. The second thing is that the marketability of that one. So we looked at Bureau of Labor Statistics data. We looked at all the other graduates, every single graduate that we have seen in the schools that we have done our homework for. They had job placement within 3 months, and it was highly, highly marketable. There's a tremendous need, tremendous shortage out there in this area, right? So we looked at the marketability. And the third thing is the multidisciplinary nature. This is the key for today's development because there are a lot of examples. I'll give you some examples. We hear a lot. So in pharmaceutical science, essentially what we are doing, this is a drug action, drug design, and the kinetics of it. So we see a lot of discoveries of the molecule. After every 9,000 molecules that are discovered, only one comes to the market. What happens to all the discoveries? We get tenures, we get promotion, we get everything else, but the patients do not see those chemicals. Patients do not take chemicals, they take formulations, right? So they take tablets, injection capsules. So the chemicals do not get translated to that. That's what critical path, by using modern tools, we are converting those molecules to an actual product, right? So, and how do we do that? So we have to bring engineering to bear. We have to bring other units to bear. So that's why what we did. Now we had conversations with the Dean of Engineering, with the Dean of Veterinary Medicine, with the Dean of Agri-Life. We have talked to all of them. And then we have put together the proposal. And after putting the proposal together, we went back to the same folks that they had recommended, and they wrote very strong support letters. That's why you'll see strong support letters from all the deans, strong support letters from the professional organizations. So that's how we prepared ourselves. I can give you many examples there, but I hope I provided a flavor. This is the kind of program we want to have.
Good, thank you. Dr. Kumar, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. The graduate program committee, being the chair of the graduate program committee, they are responsible, the whole committee is responsible for day-to-day operation for the graduate program and implementation, right from recruitment, student enrollment, and then approval and delivery of curriculum, and then major advisor and dissertation advisory committee, and then ultimately the success of the student, making sure the students succeed. So we are responsible for day-to-day operation upon the approval of the program.
Good, okay, thank you. Mr. Benfield?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be here. My role as the Assistant Dean for Finance and Administration is to support the proposal that my good colleagues have authored. And in terms of our finances, our college has done an extremely good job in stewardship of funds, and we've been able to put ourselves in a position with the university's support to be able to protect the little funds in reserve moving forward to be support for this program coming up. We are anticipating significant grant funding to come in, but in a situation that all the grant funding may not be there because that landscape's hard to predict, we do have funds in reserves to be able to support these student stipendships moving forward.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments for the panel of the board? Commissioner?
Well, when I read this proposal, I was very pleased to see that you have some elements related to prior learning and credit for professional competence and experience. That's really important that we do more of that across Texas to reduce the cost to the student and reduce the time to degree. So thank you for putting those elements in your proposal.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Dr. Peoples?
Yeah, just one other quick thing to note, or two things really, is one is that I mentioned the $12 million price tag on this thing, but about $7 million of that is in reallocated funds. So they're going to leverage a lot of what they already have, in other words. But the other thing I'd like to point out is that their graduate students in this program will have a $25,000 stipend plus tuition and fees, and that is considerably higher than we have been seeing of late in terms of stipends.
I noticed that too. I'm glad that you've taken the position that graduate students shouldn't have to take an oath of poverty in order to complete your program. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, so just as a reminder, everyone, this particular proposal and the one we have coming up next also is the decision made by this committee, and it's a recommendation of the board. So obviously next month when the board meets, we'll make the recommendations, and that's when official decisions will be made. Just for those watching online, and just a reminder for new folks about proposals. Do I have a motion on this particular item? A motion for the staff adopting the recommendation of approval?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wilson. A second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Agenda item 5I2 is consideration of the staff recommendation of the committee relating to the request for the University of Texas at San Antonio for a Master's of Science MS degree with a major in biomedical commercialization technology. We have a representative, Dr. Kevin Grant, here with us, and Dr. Eric Bray. Dr. Kevin Grant is Associate Dean of Undergraduate Studies, Associate Professor of Technology Management, UTSA College of Business. Welcome. And Dr. Eric Bray is the Chair of the Department of Biomedical Engineering at UTSA College of Engineering. And Dr. Peoples will do the presentation, and then we'll hear from the doctors from UTSA.
So the program is a proposed interdisciplinary degree, really, between the Department of Biomedical Engineering, the College of Engineering, and the Department of Information Systems and Cybersecurity, and the College of Business. And as a result of that interdisciplinary nature, the costs on this program are quite modest because, again, they can leverage a lot of the resources and facilities and faculty that they already have in this. There is a demonstrated workforce need for this program, and it does marry sort of the unique things about biomedical engineering with the idea of commercialization and how do you get those things to market and actually provide the commercial expertise that folks need to do that. And I'll let them talk about that a little bit more. But it's basically a face-to-face program that would train and equip the graduate students in the skills necessary to do this, in particularly biomedical innovations, but also things like regulatory affairs and how do you use intellectual property protection and so forth as well. So.
Dr. Grant, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, please. Just a brief overview. For many decades now, we've seen in industry, companies have been trying to tear down the silos that existed where engineers develop products and then marketing folks try to sell the products. And so we've seen this growth of integrated processes and integrated teams that are working with what are the customer's needs up front, designing the products they need and working together to commercialize those. Well, we feel education needs to make that same kind of move. And so this is a program that's designed to create those boundary spanners. And they might be business students who are increasing their knowledge of biomedical engineering, increasing their knowledge of the industry, of the terminology that's used of the design processes, or they might be engineers who are developing a broader understanding of the project management skills they'll need to translate from an idea to a commercialized product and the financial aspects along the way. So this is really a program designed to create those boundary spanners to join companies that have been doing the very same thing.
Dr. Bray, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, so I'd just like to add in that, so I moved to UTSA from Chicago a year and a half ago. In our previous institution, we'd hear from companies all the time about how the engineers need better understanding of kind of the unique regulatory quality issues of commercialization of medical technologies, project management, and these skills that maybe they weren't getting out of their engineering background. So I was really excited to see that the groundwork and the communication for this has been going on for a while, and discussions of it were important. And we heard the same thing from our industry boards here in San Antonio, or there in San Antonio. And so this is really a great opportunity for our students. They'll get, a fundamental courses, and they'll get courses in both management of technology and in biomedical engineering. And then they have the flexibility in order to tailor the education if they want to emphasize one area or the other, or an area that maybe they don't have a strong background in. And all students will complete a project on technology commercialization. We already have a lot of interest from our local industry, some of the military medical who are looking at translation also in San Antonio. So I think it's a great opportunity for students, and it's definitely something that will help strengthen their marketability when they look for opportunities afterwards.
Thank you. Any questions or any discussion on the topic? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Williams, a second?
Second.
Second by Chairman Stedman and Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much.
Very much. We're moving on to agenda item 5J, and that, as you recall, I announced at the beginning of this committee meeting, that's the item that's being withdrawn. So we'll move on to agenda item 5K, which is a report to the committee on school closures and/or teach-outs pursuant to Chapter 7, Subchapter A, Section 7.75. This is an information-only item. Dr. Peebles.
Thank you. So I will just point out that while there are a number of institutions and locations listed on this quarter's report, none of them actually involve complete closure of the institutions. So for National American University, for example, they will maintain their online university, but they're closing their physical locations. They've been in this process for some time, actually, and they have done a really good job, I think, with teach-outs and trying to provide for students as they exit those physical locations. And the other two are Arlington Baptist University and Vista College, both of which are also closing locations that they have, but both of which will also remain in business as well. In particular, Arlington Baptist, they will remain in business in Arlington, and Vista College will also remain in business, but they're just closing some of their physical locations around the state.
Okay, thank you. Next, agenda items 5L, 5M, 1 through 9, 5N, 1 through 5. We're on the consent calendar. We move on to agenda item 5O. It's consideration of adopting the lower division academic course guide manual, ACGM, advisory committee's recommendation to the committee relating to changes in the ACGM. Dr. Peebles.
So as you heard earlier, one of the primary functions of the academic course guide manual committee is to review courses for use, or actually to review courses for disuse, might be a better way to put it. But they've also taken on the added role of reviewing courses that come up as a result of field of study work, where the field of study committees have either recommended new courses or they have recommended that existing courses and their student learning outcomes be revised. So you have two sets of recommendations in front of you. One of them is courses modified or added as a part of the Learning Outcomes Project, and these are connected to fields of study. And you can see those, and then the other is a very long list of courses to be recommended for deletion. And I would like to point out that once they are approved by the board for deletion, there's actually a 2-year teach-out period for these courses where they can, institutions can still offer them if they need to for degree plans or what have you, but it also gives the institutions the opportunity during that 2-year time period to appeal the decision, so to speak. So they can come back and make a case to the ACGM that a course ought to be reinstated, and that does indeed happen every now and then. But most of the time, courses that are recommended for deletion are because they have long fell out of use, and they're simply no longer needed.
Okay. If there's any questions or any discussion with Dr. Peebles on this topic? If we do not, do I have a motion to adopt the committee's recommendation? Moved by Mr. Wilson. A second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 5P is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to a contract award for the next generation classification and diagnostic assessment instrument used for the Texas Success Initiative. Members, you have supplementary materials in this item, and it's this gold rod paper that you see right here. So everyone should have one of these in their packets. You can pull that out, please. Dr. Morales Valle will be presenting this item. Thank you for being here, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members. As you may recall, the current contract for the Texas Success Initiative Assessment, the TSIA, ends August 31st, 2020. In preparation for the next generation TSIA, called TSIA 2.0, we issued a no-cost request for proposals this spring, and we have completed the 5-stage evaluation, including a review of submitted sample items by an independent team of subject matter experts and psychometricians. Anticipated featured upgrades to the current TSIA include content items aligned to revised standards, integration of reading and writing components, reduction of diagnostic testing from 2 to 1, improved transportability of test results, improved test administrator training and data matching, and finally, customized online learning support for students who don't initially meet the college readiness benchmark. Launch date will be fall 2020, but non-exempt students will still be able to use the current version of the TSIA for any fall 2020 enrollments and up to the institution's first class day of fall 2020. Non-exempt students not enrolling in fall 2020 but enrolling in spring 2021 and later will be required to test on the new TSIA 2.0. We're seeking approval to pursue contract negotiations with the College Board to serve as the vendor for the TSIA 2.0.
Okay. Dr. Gardner, do you have anything to add?
Only that we're hopeful that we're going to achieve a contract with the College Board in the near future, and we'll report back to you at the board meeting. But what we're specifically asking for is approval to award a no-cost contract pending successful contract negotiations. It's a little bit different than what you awarded. So they've been very responsive to our request following their proposal, and it is a no-cost contract, but we want to make sure before it's signed that all the needs are met that Suzanne outlined earlier. But they're being very responsive at this point.
What is a no-cost contract?
We are not giving them any money to do this. They were going to essentially pay for what they're doing through the administration. Every test administered, there will be a cost. It's a low-cost exam, but they'll get the money back that way.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the topic? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adopt the committee's recommendation? Moved by Chairman Stedman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. We move on to agenda item 5Q, which is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation of the committee relating to the allocation of funds for the virtual advising platform. Dr. Morales Valle.
Thank you. As you may recall, we presented an innovation agenda item at the October 28 board meeting on artificial intelligence, also known as AI. And AI similar to Siri and Alexa, you might be familiar with those, and in its expansion in higher education. You may also recall past presentations by Georgia State University and West Texas A&M on their AI chatbot programs as prime examples of the ways technology is being used to better serve students. We said at that time we would start our own virtual advising program. We partnered with the University of Texas at Austin to create a chatbot named Andy, which pairs AI and knowledgeable near-peer advisors to help address effective college advising. Research confirms time and time again that robust and effective advising is one of our most critical tools to help ensure students get to and through post-secondary credentials. As you can see from this slide, the chatbot Andy helps Texans get answers to questions related to attending college, returning to college, financial aid, and much more. And you can see here from the slide, it's a little bit difficult to see in the green, but the question that a student submitted is, can I drop a class? And you can see the response from Andy. And then the second question then, it was a follow-up, will I get a refund? And again, you can see an example of the type of response that Andy will provide for students. Since we've launched this initiative and are currently beta testing Andy, we have the goal to be 100% available statewide by September. These funds will continue to help directly support students with a 24/7 virtual advising response, and we request your approval for this critical and innovative project.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions?
What's our part's 250, what's the total budget?
I'm going to go ahead and defer to our content expert, Erin Willig, and she can give you some more details about the costs and details related to that.
Thank you. My name is Erin Willig. I'm a program specialist in college readiness success and the main contact for this project. Our budget for the initial build of this project was $220,000, and we are requesting up to $250,000. We actually anticipate that it will be quite a bit less than that. We are currently working with UT to see their final report on the cost and the work that they did with a vendor to create Andy. But we anticipate that the actual cost will be around $150,000. But we are asking for up to $250,000 just to ensure that we have the funds to continue the project.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Ms. Williams?
How does Andy work? Is there like a set of questions that is programmed into it? And if Andy can't answer the question, then what happens?
Great question. So yes, there is a knowledge base of over 1,000 questions that UT and we have spent the last 6 months building. That's based on best practices provided by the vendor in other implementations of similar chatbots, so questions that we know that students ask, as well as questions that we knew were specific to Texas and specific to the populations that we were trying to reach. As we use the chatbot and we get information about more questions that students ask, we can add things to the knowledge base. So that's the knowledge base as it stands. The way it works in terms of if Andy cannot answer a question, we have a team over at UT in the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement that can respond to student questions that Andy can't answer. So they are auto-escalated to a human if Andy tries multiple times and cannot provide an adequate answer.
Does it tutor? Can Andy tutor?
Andy does not tutor, unfortunately. But there are, we do have campaigns for things like the FAFSA. So there's a detailed campaign for the FAFSA that can walk through the steps and catch common questions. And so there can be kind of tutorials in that way.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
And certainly Andy can also give information to the student to tell the student where to find tutoring on campus.
Is there a time limit on how long you can talk to Andy?
There is not.
So you can you could ask questions for hours, presumably?
You could, yes.
Wow.
I can tell you some of the fun part was when we were doing some of the beta testing and we were encouraged to be as creative as possible, you know, with the hat of a student. And yeah, it was really interesting. And I think Andy even showed a little bit of humor in some cases and brought in the little emojis and things like that. So it is certainly speaking the language of the students.
You may recall in hearing from Georgia State that they found that there are students who are much more willing to use a platform like this than actually go in person and ask an advisor. So it addresses a population that may be a little bit shy or reluctant to go in or ask what they think may be a stupid question. But as with person-to-person advising, this isn't perfect either, and so we need to realize, you know, it's always going to need improvement.
It's a great initiative.
Lauren?
Will this be individualized per institution when it goes statewide? And if it is, could you program it to link in resources? For example, like if they need to go and talk to an advisor. I know a lot of campuses, you know, you have to book that appointment through a specific system. Would that be possible to link the two through Andy?
So that's a great question and something we've been exploring with the vendor. At this point, we are providing general statewide resources, so not institution specific. If a student asks about a specific institution, they get a general answer that points them in the direction of that institution's website and gives them a little bit of general information. But the vendor is exploring different options for providing customizations and custom answers based on institutions. So we are eager to hear what they have to say about that going forward. In the meantime, we did reach out out to all of the institutions to ask for contacts in their individual departments. So if we see a student is asking a very specific question that Andy can't answer about a specific institution, our advisors can either look that up themselves and provide that to the student, or reach out directly to the contacts that were provided for that institution and connect the student.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Williams. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you all. We move on to Agenda Item 5R, which is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to the allocation of funds for the Advise Texas College Advising Program. Dr. Morales-Valle.
As you know, the Advise Texas program, implemented for over 10 years and funded by the Texas legislature for the past 4 years, provides near-peer advising at 112 Texas high schools that have historically sent fewer students to college. We were talking about the direct-to-college issue earlier, so I think this really is one of the factors that I think may potentially affect that positively. The Texas legislature recently approved $2 million per year to continue supporting this program. Last year, we reported most recent outcomes for Advise Texas, including a more than 5% increase in the college-going rates at many of these schools. We asked permission to use these funds allocated by the 86th Texas legislature moving into this next year.
Thank you. Any questions? Discussion? Do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Wilson. A second?
Williams.
By Ms. Williams. Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. We move on to Agenda Item 5S, which is consideration of adopting the staff recommendation to the committee relating to allocation of funds for the Work-Study Mentorship Program. Dr. Morales-Valle.
As you know, Work-Study Mentorship is a financial aid program to employ college students in need. Students work as mentors, tutors, and near-peer advisors for current and future students. Work-Study Mentorship funds are allocated from a portion of the state's Texas College Work-Study appropriations. There are currently 63 Work-Study Mentorship institutions participating in the program, serving almost 1,000 students per year. We are requesting approval to provide up to $7 million in work-study mentorship funds over the biennium to continue employing students in need and continue efforts in meeting the goals of 60 by 30 higher education plan.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions or discussion? If not, do I have a motion to adopt the staff recommendation? Yes, sir. Chairman Steadman.
So this is, I guess it'd be kind of my question earlier about, okay, so what is this going to do? In other words, how do you, this is Texas Works? No.
No,
Work-study
this is,
mentorship.
Work-study mentorship, okay. So explain the difference.
so students who qualify through financial aid, they, part of their award may be a work-study allotment. And so then students generally, I know in the past I was a work-study recipient, they basically place students either on campus or off campus, and many times it's maybe answering the phone for a department and doesn't necessarily have a meaningful connection. And so what this does is it focuses the areas specifically for these work-study students to become mentors, tutors, and near-peer advisors, both for college students and to go into their local high schools and work with the students there. And so there's more of a direct connection, and again, we talked about the direct-to-college, issue earlier, direct connection to helping advise students to get to college and to answer their questions.
So they're paid internships, basically.
Not really an internship. This is a part of their financial aid award. I also have my colleague Vanessa Malo, who is the program manager.
I mean, it seems to overlap with sort of the idea of paid internships, and it seems to overlap with Advise Texas.
Okay. Well,
the way you described it.
If I could say, as Suzanne pointed out, work-study has been around for years. There's federal money for this as well. This is focusing state money on a specific approach to have students helping other students, essentially. And it's not a internship in the specific, in the traditional sense that you're working on I guess you could consider if it's just working on advising students in a sense. But with internships, there should be some progression, so it's increasingly more skills as you go along, and you're more likely to be working with industry, although you could do an internship on campus. But I can see how there could be some confusion. But this is building on traditional work study, which traditionally most of it had been on campus, and it could have been working in the bookstore, sitting at the desk in the library, being an intramural referee.
Right.
But it's doing something more meaningful for the students. But the internships with Texas Works will be working explicitly with companies with explicitly detailed marketable skills that hopefully will build as they go through. And wherever we can build those also in with academic credit, as the commissioner always mentions.
Yeah, the simple answer to the question is they're different. They're not internships, but there is a lot of overlap.
Sure.
And
there seems to be, the way you described it, to the extent that they go into high schools, there's overlap with Advise Texas.
right.
Yes, and Vanessa, you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yes, so my name is Vanessa Mullo, and I oversee the Work Study Mentorship Program and Program Specialist with College Readiness and Success. So there is some overlapping. I think each area is distinct and unique in how they are approaching serving the students. I can speak specifically to the Work Study Mentorship Program. You're correct as far as being distinct, where Texas Works is going to be an internship within companies, and here we're providing opportunities for students to develop leadership development. They are strengthening marketable skills in the capacity within working within their campuses and off campus. But as far as the advising, maybe elaborate a little bit about the advising part.
Yeah. And also, yes, you mentioned the overlap with Advise Texas in terms of going to the high schools and working directly with students. Certainly, yes, there would be. But of course, the funding sources are different. The Work Study Mentorship is a federally funded financial aid program, or component of federally funded financial aid.
I see. So this is federally funded.
It comes from the same statute. A financial assistance program is considered a financial assistance program, but the appropriations are carved out of Texas Work Study funds. Okay. So it ends up being state funded.
And by the way, Texas advisors are there all day long,
Right.
all week long,
Right.
And getting paid considerably more.
And we have and there are two sources of work study support. There's federal money. There's federal money for work study, and there's state money for work study.
Yes, yes.
And our students work about 20 hours a week. And so they're mentoring when they go off campus. They're tutoring, they're doing near-to-peer advising. They work predominantly in the secondary level, GO centers, career centers. So they're helping at the front line of incoming students and current students. Claudette?
Good afternoon, Claudette Jinks, the Director of College Access. I do oversee the Advise Texas program, and to your point, there is some overlap. However, there are 112 advisors, and like Dr. Gardner said, they are full-time. The model is a little bit more specific, whereas the Work Study Mentorship Program, they are specific in going into high schools and working directly with students and encouraging them to apply to college and do financial aid. However, they're part-time students. Our Advise Texas advisors are full-time. And it is a little different model. It's part of the national model. There are only 4 institutions in the state that do Advise Texas, whereas there are several institutions that do Work Study Mentorship.
Excuse me, can you state your name again? It was kind of quick.
I'm sorry, Claudette Jinks.
Okay, and I know you said what you do here at the coordinating board. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, I'm a director in the College Readiness Success Division. I oversee the Advise Texas program.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Advise Texas advisors are college graduates, and these are students, current undergraduate students.
Right. Correct.
Okay, it's kind of sinking in, but thank you.
Yeah, there are multiple initiatives. Obviously, Advise Texas serves a portion of the many high schools in the state.
Right.
There's 110 high schools that are being served currently, where there are thousands of other schools. So we do have this Texas Work Study Mentorship Program that provides these part-time students that go in and work with high schools directly. And as Vanessa said and Suzanne said, they also do work at institutions of higher education. So that model is a little different than the Advise Texas model.
Right, and you're right.
Out there.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, this is complex, and this gives us an
Yeah.
idea how higher education is, right? And this is a good thing that you guys keep up with all this, because there's so many initiatives, like you say, and there's so many different funding sources. But my question is more like, how do the institutions, the students see where these opportunities are at for them?
How do they what? Excuse me?
How are they available, these opportunities for the students? Are those directly communicated to the universities?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have collaborative efforts within the institutions. They've developed partnerships. So, for instance, your project director has a partnership with the financial aid director.
Right.
They work together. They determine who is eligible in accordance with Texas Work Study, and then they reach out to those students to provide them with work opportunities, which of course provides flexibility as they're going to school. So they're being mentored and at the same time strengthening their marketable skills through leadership development in these positions at
Right.
school.
I mean, there's a great initiatives and great programs for students. And like you said, Suzanne, you're a product of that as well. So I think that's great, and keep up the good work for the staff on that, because it's very important. And my reason for my question is because I'd like for the financial aid programs and the institutions to be able to get that information out to the students for the opportunities that are available.
Very much so.
But thank you all so much for being here and explaining that to us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 5T. Oh, it's lunchtime. And it is now 11:56, so we need to vote on it. Thank you. You're correct. Do I have a motion to adopt that staff recommendation?
Oh, I thought you meant lunch.
Well, no, we'll get that in a minute. Thank you. A motion by Ms. Williams, a second. Mr. Wilson, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, motion, any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Now we're ready for agenda item 5T, Chairman Steadman's favorite. Adjourn for lunch. But first I need to make a comment, yes, but first we want to, I want to say that the committee will now break for lunch. And while a quorum will likely be present, no public business or public policy over which this board has supervision or control will be discussed. We intend to reconvene at 12:30. Okay, it is now, right now, 11:57, and we'll convene at 12:30. And then when we come back, we're just actually going to go over, because of the open meetings law, we'll only have a couple of items, and it'll be adjournment. So for those of you that have other things to do, we understand. Unless you want to come back via adjournment, it'll be probably less than 2 or 3 minutes when we come back. But thank you so much. Thank you, committee. And do I have a motion to?
I'll make the motion.
I don't think we need a motion because we're not actually adjourning.
But I'll make the motion anyway.
Oh, well. Thank you. We'll see you back at 12:30.
For lunch?
Okay.
You know how to clear out a room.
And now bring it back together. Yeah, that's what I get for saying you don't have to come back if you don't want to. Welcome back. It is now 12:31. Are we online, Mary? Great. Okay, we are moving on. If you're watching live, welcome back. If you're watching on the internet, this is the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board's Committee on Academic and Workforce Success. Agenda items 5U, V, W, X, Y, Z, 1 through 5. Yes, I know the alphabet. Chairman Stedman. And so does the coordinating board staff, right? They were on the consent calendar. Agenda item 6 is one of Chairman Stedman's favorite, and that is adjournment. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjournment? Motion by Chairman Stedman, second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Williams. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you all for listening and attending, and that concludes today's meeting.